I don't want to die. I'm on the verge of dying.
What if I told you some of the biggest boxing legends were secretly battling serious addictions behind the scenes? From world champions struggling with cocaine and alcohol, to others quietly dealing with sex addiction. Here are some boxers' secret addictions they don't want you to know. 1. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was not only a boxer, he was a force of nature. Nicknamed Iron Mike, he became the youngest heavyweight champion in history at age 20. With his bone-chilling knockouts and unhinged energy, Tyson was a worldwide sensation. But with fame came a cost. Behind the scenes, Tyson had battled cocaine, alcohol, and sex addiction. In his own words, he lived a life of chaos. He used drugs during training and even confessed to fighting high on cocaine. To cheat on drug tests, he had a fake penis filled with clean urine. It sounds incredible, but it's true. Tyson also admitted to sex addiction, stating he needed to surround himself with women all the time to feel all right. These addictions put him in risky situations, such as arrest, public breakdowns, and financial issues. He once went through more than $300 million from his professional boxing career. Nowadays, Tyson is not shy about his history. He's in recovery and frequently discusses his demons to assist others. But back in his heyday, these were certainly secrets he attempted to keep on the down low. 2. Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya was the sweetheart of boxing. With his looks, charm, and ability, he became known as the Golden Boy. He won 10 world titles in 6 weight divisions and even won an Olympic gold medal in 1992. But beneath that shiny veneer, Oscar was battling his demons. He hid his alcohol and cocaine addiction for years. It reached the point that he checked himself into rehab more than once. He afterward confessed he had been living a lie, faking happiness while struggling with deep emotional agony. One of the biggest shocks of Oscar's tale was the scandal surrounding photos of him cross-dressing. The photos appeared on the internet, and initially, he said they were not real. But later on in rehab, he eventually owned up to it being him. He said that his drug use had led him into behavior he did not fully comprehend at the time. It was a shock to fans who viewed him as clean-cut and flawless. But like Tyson, De La Hoya has been truthful about his road to recovery and states that he's doing everything daily to remain clean and live a good life. 3. Ricky Hatton. Ricky Hatton was Britain's most popular boxer. With his down-to-earth nature, great smile, and thrilling ring style, he was loved by fans. He was a world champion in several weights and battled some of the biggest names in boxing, such as Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Manny Pacquiao. But once those big fight battles were over, it all began to fall apart. After getting defeated by Pacquiao in 2009, Hatton retired from boxing quietly. Fans believed he was only taking a break, but he was spiraling. The loss of direction suddenly, the pressure to remain in the limelight, and the emotional hurt pushed him directly into addiction. In 2010, the media captured him on video snorting cocaine in a hotel room, and the news left his fans shocked. Hatton subsequently confessed that he was drinking excessively and taking drugs to avoid his depression. He was lost without boxing and did not know how to handle it. He even admitted that he attempted to kill himself at his worst times. These demons were not seen by the world because, outwardly, he was still the beaming hitman. But on the inside, he was suffering. Fortunately, Hatton chose to seek help. He went to rehab, talked about his mental health, and rebuilt his life. He then came back to the sport as a trainer and promoter, preventing young fighters from making the same errors. Nowadays, Hatton's comeback is not only about boxing, it's about survival and integrity. 4. Julio Cesar Chavez. Julio Cesar Chavez is a Mexican boxing icon and the world over. He was the world champion in 3 divisions and compiled an eye-opening record of 107 wins, most by knockout. He had been unbeatable for years, with the masses cheering him as a national idol. But in that untamed persona lay a secret that nearly destroyed it all: cocaine and alcohol abuse. When he was at the peak of his career, Chavez was living it up. He went on to say that he was using cocaine consistently, sometimes even before or after major bouts. He was also drinking regularly, sometimes not sleeping at all, and then going directly to the gym. But since he kept winning, no one dared question what was happening behind the scenes. Finally, however, the habit caught up to him. His performances began to decline, and personal issues began to accumulate. He reached a low point when he found he couldn't make it without substances or booze. It wasn't about boxing anymore, it was survival. Chavez finally admitted his problems and went to rehab. In interviews, he has talked about how hard it was to stay clean, especially when you're seen as a hero and expected to be perfect all the time. What's powerful about Chavez's story is that he didn't just recover, he became an example for others. He's now an advocate for addiction recovery and helps others get clean. 5. Edwin Valero. Edwin Valero was a Venezuelan rising star. He was quick, strong, and intimidating in the ring. Famous for knocking out all 27 of his fights, Valero was headed for legend status. Fans adored his aggressive fighting style, and promoters viewed him as the next big thing. However, outside the ring, Valero was battling a much more sinister foe: addiction and violence. Valero was a heavy drinker and drug user. He drank excessively, partied hard, and used cocaine. As his addiction became worse, his actions became hazardous. He was known to be violent and aggressive, particularly towards his wife. There were numerous domestic violence reports, but Valero managed to avoid punishment each time. His ability won over people, and they turned a blind eye to what was happening. Things went tragically wrong in 2010. Valero was arrested for killing his wife, and only a day later, he was lifeless in his jail cell. Officials declared it a suicide. Fans were stunned, and the boxing community was left to wonder how a career so full of promise had gone so wrong. Most people feel that Valero's addictions and untreated mental illness were a huge contributing factor to his demise. What makes his story even more pitiful is the amount of potential he had. He could have been a champion in several weights, but that was not what happened. He became a sad example of how things go when one's demons are stronger than one's ability. 6. Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner was once hailed as the next Floyd Mayweather. He had the flashy fighting style, the brash mouth, and the ability to back it all up. He won world championships in 4 weight classes and wasn't shy about his money, cars, and bling. But just as fast as he rose to the top of the boxing world, Broner's life began to disintegrate, and much of it revolved around addiction and bad decisions. Broner openly fought against alcoholism and sex addiction. He was frequently seen clubbing late at night, appearing intoxicated on social media, and landing in legal trouble. His concentration on fame and quick living pulled him away from training and discipline. He started to lose fights he was supposed to win, and the fans turned against him. He even confessed that he used booze to numb his feelings, particularly after difficult losses. His actions became erratic, and most individuals around him were concerned for his well-being. He was arrested several times, sued, and even spoke of suicidal tendencies. Yet Broner continued to brush things off in public, making everything seem okay. Broner had numerous comebacks in 2021 and 2022, declaring himself sober and prepared to concentrate. Staying focused has proven challenging to him, however. His skills remain present, but his issues on the inside have kept him from living up to what others expected of him. 7. Pernell Whitaker. Pernell Sweet Pea. Whitaker was among the smoothest, wisest boxers ever to enter a ring. His dazzling defense and footwork enabled him to make foes miss all night long. He won an Olympic gold in 1984, was a 4-division world champion, and was generally admired as a master boxer. But while he was educating foes in the ring, he was silently grappling with a bad cocaine habit. Whitaker started using drugs even when he was still competing professionally. Initially, he could conceal it. He continued to win, and everyone only witnessed the superstar player. However, the indicators began to reveal themselves: missing chances, erratic behavior, and ultimately failed drug tests. In 2002, he tested positive for cocaine following a comeback bout and was suspended from boxing. It was a stark indication that something was seriously amiss. Outside of the ring, his life was a mess. He had legal troubles, lost a fortune, and publicly argued with family members. But despite all of this, fans still looked up to his ability. Most thought that if he had not been dirty, he might have had an even more dominant career. Unfortunately, in 2019, Whitaker was tragically assassinated when he was hit by a car while crossing the road. His demise came as a shock to the world of boxing. Although his addiction never consumed him completely, it certainly haunted his later years. Whitaker's life is a reminder that even legends can be brought down by things they never learned to fight, such as addiction. 8. Arturo Gatti. If you ever got to see Arturo Gatti fight, you know he was an all-time great showman in the ring. His fights with Mickey Ward are the stuff of legend: heart, grit, and non-stop action. People adored Gatti because he left it all on the floor each time he climbed in the ring. But beneath that battle-hardened warrior exterior was a man with a troubled history of booze and rumored drug use. Gatti's personal life was often chaotic. He was known to party hard, drink heavily, and hang out with the wrong crowd. Those close to him worried about his choices, but his tough guy image made it easy to ignore. After retiring in 2007, his problems seemed to get worse. He appeared in public looking worn down and unstable, and rumors of drug use became more frequent. In 2009, Gatti was discovered lifeless in Brazil, under questionable circumstances, while on vacation with his wife. Police initially suspected suicide, but the case took a dramatic turn when his wife was arrested and eventually released for lack of evidence. Most still think that his passing away had something to do with foul play, possibly linked to substance abuse and unstable relationships. 9. Johnny Tapia. Johnny Tapia's life is more like a film than fiction. Born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, his childhood was marred by tragedy. At the tender age of 8, his mother was brutally murdered. That trauma followed him for the rest of his life. Boxing was his escape, his means of getting through the pain. And oh boy, was he good at it. Tapia became a 5-time world champion, famous for his quick hands, wild energy, and big heart. But off the ring, Tapia's life was marred by mayhem. He struggled with cocaine and heroin addiction for decades, going missing at times during training camps or appearing high to bouts. His nickname was Mi Vida Loca, meaning my crazy life, and he lived up to it to the fullest. Tapia also tried to take his own life several times, weighed down by depression, substance abuse, and emotional trauma. He once went flatline and was clinically pronounced lifeless, yet somehow managed to survive. Despite his issues, fans loved him. He battled with fire and pure emotion, and most could tell that he was suffering inside. His existence was a roller coaster of comeback attempts, setbacks, and near misses. Tragically, in 2012, Tapia was discovered lifeless in his apartment at only 45 years old. His lifelessness was declared due to heart failure, which was most likely exacerbated by decades of drug use. Johnny Tapia is not just remembered for his amazing ring skills, but also for how brutally honest he was about his demons. He never lived the lie of being perfect. He demonstrated that even though a person may smile and fight with all their might, they may also have deep pain. 10. Shannon Briggs. Shannon the Cannon. Briggs was a hard-hitting puncher with boastful personality and his iconic catchphrase, "Let's go champ." He defeated David Tua in 1997 to become the lineal heavyweight champion and was renowned for his huge muscles and trash-talking braggadocio. But while he was screaming into cameras and taunting opponents, Briggs was keeping a secret: painkiller addiction and depression. Having endured asthma and injuries, Briggs began taking prescription painkillers to deal with the physical ramifications of boxing. But the pills eventually became a crutch. He went on to admit that after a 2010 loss, he slipped into a severe depression and became hooked on medication. He gained weight, ceased training, and shut himself out from everyone. He even confessed to contemplating suicide. But Shannon Briggs did not quit. In a stunning return, he spoke out about his mental health problems and began using his "Let's Go Champ" motto as a means to encourage others. He got back in the ring, got back in shape, and became a mental health awareness advocate, particularly for athletes who are constantly pressured to seem tough and emotionless. 11. Leon Spinks. Leon Spinks orchestrated one of the greatest upsets in boxing history. In 1978, with only 7 professional bouts to his credit, he defeated Muhammad Ali and became the world's undisputed heavyweight champion. The world was shocked, and Spinks was an overnight sensation. With his missing teeth, wide grin, and raw power, he was a crowd favorite. But fame descended too soon. Leon didn't have time to get used to the limelight. He began partying extravagantly, heavy drinking, and cocaine use. Rather than continue to focus on training, he hung out with the wrong company, lost handle of his funds, and into a perilous way of living. In interviews later in his life, Leon confessed that he was caught up in the luxurious life and hadn't prepared for the burden that came with champion status. He lost the rematch to Ali a few months later, and his career gradually declined from there. Although he kept fighting for years, he was never the same again. Outside the ring, he had problems with addiction and illness. By the time he retired, he had lost most of his money, and his health had begun to deteriorate. During his latter years, Leon fought prostate cancer, brain atrophy, and other issues, partly attributed to his earlier drug abuse and boxing injuries. He passed away in 2021, but fans will never forget him as the individual who stunned the world, and as the man who, unfortunately, couldn't shake off his demons. 12. Thomas Hearns. Thomas Hitman. Hearns was one of the most feared punchers in boxing history. He was tall, quick, and possessed a right hand capable of knocking anyone out cold. A multi-division world champion, he battled legendary names Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, and Marvin Hagler. He was popular among fans for his warrior spirit and action-packed fights. But beneath that gruff exterior, Hearns encountered a different sort of adversary: money woes and addiction speculation. Although he earned millions throughout his career, Hearns found himself deeply in debt. In 2010, he was reportedly owing hundreds of thousands in overdue taxes and auctioning off personal belongings to settle his accounts. A few people around Hearns thought that his issues stemmed from gambling and potential drug use, although he never publicly acknowledged drug problems. Others attributed them to poor fiscal management and poor planning. Whatever the reason, it was heartbreaking to see this respected champion suffer financially after contributing so much to the sport. Even during those hard times, Hearns never let his head hang low. He went on to become a trainer and mentor, guiding young boxers and remaining active in the sport. He also shared the importance of taking care of your money and your body, lessons he learned the hard way. 13. Aaron Pryor. Aaron Pryor was a pure beast in the ring. Nicknamed the Hawk, he possessed speed, power, and a ferocious style that left his opponents dazed. Pryor was most famous for his classic 1982 bout against Alexis Arguello, which many boxing enthusiasts still refer to as one of the greatest fights of all time. He was the WBA and IBF light welterweight champion and remained unbeaten for the majority of his career. But beneath the glory, Aaron was engaged in an inner conflict. In the mid-1980s, he was addicted to crack cocaine. The addiction consumed his life. He began missing workouts, getting in trouble, and his boxing career began to deteriorate. His addiction was so severe that he vanished from the sport for years, and when he returned, he was never the same again. Pryor finally went into rehab and cleaned up, even becoming a drug counselor to assist others. He said that drugs almost destroyed all he worked for, and that he greatly regretted wasting so many of his best years. Aaron Pryor was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, despite his issues later on, showing that his ability still kept him among the legends. 14. Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran, or Hands of Stone, is among the most legendary names in boxing history. The Panamanian legend was a 4-weight world champion and had one of the longest careers in boxing history, at over 30 years. He was famous for his aggressive fighting style, iron will, and unforgettable victories over boxers like Sugar Ray Leonard. But Duran's enthusiasm was not only for boxing, it was also for living large and drinking. At the height of his career, he was frequently out partying, drinking, and living a hard life. Though some fans admired his free spirit, others were concerned that it was damaging his concentration and training. Following his notorious No Mas fight in 1980, when he quit mid-rematch against Leonard, rumors abounded that his drinking and lack of discipline had something to do with it. Although his way of life affected his career sporadically, Duran always managed to recover. He remained in the sport longer than the majority of his contemporaries, ultimately retiring in his 50s. He remains one of the strongest and most exciting fighters in the world ever. 15. Hector Camacho. Hector Camacho wasn't merely a boxer, he was an entertainer. Flashy clothing, unkempt hairdos, and a perpetual buzz surrounding him, Camacho infused a distinctive flair on the sport that his fans devoured. The product of Puerto Rico and growing up in Spanish Harlem, Camacho emerged as a 3-division world champion, remembered for his agile movement and lightning-quick fists. But as great as his star shone in the ring, life was dark behind the cameras. Camacho was addicted to the party life, drugs, booze, and round-the-clock mayhem. Cocaine was his greatest vice. His addiction resulted in several run-ins with the law, erratic behavior, and career mishaps. As the years passed, he became more renowned for his issues than his bouts. Despite all the theatrics, his fans never gave up on him. He came back several times, proving that he still had some fight in him. But his lifestyle never really changed. In 2012, disaster struck. Camacho was shot while sitting in a parked car in Puerto Rico. He passed away soon after, and toxicology tests revealed that cocaine was in his system when he passed away. It was a tragic ending for a man who once brightened up boxing rings all over the globe. 16. Meldrick Taylor. Meldrick Taylor was once regarded as the next big thing in boxing. Having won an Olympic gold medal in 1984, he began his professional career and began piling up victories with his electrifying speed and silky smooth technique. His pinnacle of glory came in 1990, when he was pitted against Julio Cesar Chavez in what is still regarded as one of the greatest boxing matches ever. Taylor led on the scorecards but was halted in the last seconds, a moment still causing controversy among supporters. But soon after that loss, Taylor's career slowly went into decline. Behind the camera, he was fighting an intensifying cocaine habit. Something used recreationally blossomed into an all-consuming problem that attacked both his physical and mental well-being. His enunciation slurred, his reactions slowed, and his performances in the ring languished. Trainers and friends picked up on the difference, but by the time he received treatment, the damage was done. Taylor continued to fight, even when not the same. He finally retired, but not before suffering serious punishment that many feel exacerbated his condition. In subsequent interviews, Taylor talked about his regrets, expressing that he wished he had quit earlier and cleaned up sooner. His downfall is one of the saddest in boxing history, particularly since he had so much potential. 17. James Toney. James Lights Out. Toney was perhaps the most talented and naturally gifted pugilist of his era. With lightning-quick reflexes, incredible defense, and the type of ring IQ most boxers can only hope to attain, he became a multi-division world champion, claiming titles from middleweight up to heavyweight. He was famous for his trash talk, smooth defense, and ability to slip punches like a magician. But beneath that rugged and self-assured facade was a man who wrestled with two primary problems: steroid use and food addiction. Tony's weight issues were not a secret. As he weighed up, it wasn't always for strategic reasons. It was more that he could not control himself. His affection for food got him into major trouble. Coaches struggled to keep him in line. He would balloon in between bouts, reporting to training camp overweight and in poor physical shape. It caught up with him in stamina, speed, and overall performance. And then there's James Toney, who tested positive for steroids after winning the heavyweight title from John Ruiz in 2005. The bout was to be historic for him, a middleweight turned heavyweight title holder in rare form. But controversy marred the victory. It was stripped away from him and he was suspended. Toney said that the positive result was due to medication for a medical issue, but the reputational damage was already done. Even with all of that, fans still had respect for his phenomenal ability. But many think that without his demons, he might have done even better. 18. Tyrell Biggs. If you saw the 1984 Olympics, you likely recall Tyrell Biggs. He took the gold medal in boxing, beating some of the world's toughest amateur boxers. Biggs was regarded as the future of the heavyweight division. With reach, height, and smooth movement, he appeared to be a world champion waiting to happen. But shortly after going pro, Tyrell started fighting an addiction: cocaine. Initially, he was winning bouts, gradually moving up the ranks. But secretly, he was already using. His addiction influenced his training, concentration, and confidence. When he later competed against Mike Tyson in 1987 for the heavyweight championship, he wasn't the same boxer anymore. Tyson annihilated him in 7 rounds, and Biggs never achieved the same level again. Rather than rebounding, his career continued to disintegrate. He started losing to weaker opponents, and fans began to notice that he seemed slower, more fatigued, and less concentrated. The cocaine had affected both his body and his mind. Biggs subsequently admitted he was coping with a great deal of pressure and personal distress, and cocaine was an escape route for him. Biggs went to rehab and attempted to put his life back on track, though his boxing life never got its mojo back. A once gold-line future morphed into years of regrets. 19. Frankie Randall. Frankie Randall stunned the world in 1994 when he gave the great Julio Cesar Chavez his first professional defeat. Randall's name was blazing in the boxing world at that time. He went on to become a 3-time world champion and was renowned for his swift footwork, intelligent style, and phenomenal endurance. But at the back of all that achievement was a man with a secret sorrow, an addiction to drugs that quietly shadowed him throughout his career. Randall began using drugs during his professional fighting career, and although he managed to keep it hidden at first, it began to tell. His performance, discipline, and concentration all began to deteriorate. Although he continued to bounce back and even regained his titles, the struggle with addiction was always simmering in the background. Later in life, his health deteriorated, and the long-term consequences of both boxing and drug use became apparent. He passed away in 2020 at the age of 59, and most fans recall him as a fighter who had the heart of a champion, but a life filled with a quiet, agonizing struggle. 20. Trevor Berbick. Trevor Berbick will forever be remembered as the final man to face Muhammad Ali, and the man who lost his belt to Mike Tyson, making Tyson the youngest heavyweight champion of all time. That alone gets Berbick's name into boxing lore. Berbick boasted a good, aggressive fighting style and was renowned for being fearless in the ring. But away from the ropes, Berbick's life was a turmoil. His tale is one of legal woes, drug abuse, and mental issues. He was arrested several times for various reasons, including assault and immigration charges. Most of these issues were attributed to his unstable lifestyle and alleged drug abuse. His state of mind only worsened with time. and he found it difficult to get back on the right track once his boxing life was over. Unfortunately, his life was cut short in 2006 when he was brutally killed in Jamaica at the age of 52. His demise caught everyone off guard and reminded people how hard life can be for boxers after the limelight dies down.